Thank you, Mark. We sit here to discuss climate change a year after the motion which promised to divest Cambridge from fossil fuels, a worthy if symbolic decision. Since then, the focus of the media and the government has largely been on Brexit, although climate change has not stopped, even though they might have stopped talking about it. The debates for the American presidential contest haven't really mentioned it, alarmingly. And now we have a new report from the Committee on Climate Change a week ago, new record temperatures, although this is becoming usual. There is a new executive councillor who I have a high regard for, and I know he's an environmental campaigner himself. Labour were talking about banning fracking. So I've come back to the council to try to ask for more on climate change. But this amendment is effectively deleting the motion. It's removing the points that I'm trying to make. So I'll try to convince councillors that there's some public good in this motion. I'm not saying that the existing strategy is bad. It is extremely good. And together with the progress which is mentioned in the amendment, Labour and the officers should indeed be proud. But it's clear that we need to do more. And also there are some problems and inconsistencies in the strategy which bear consideration. First, the report sets an aspiration for becoming zero carbon by 2050, but blames changes of policy by the national government for limiting the options that the city has. Yes, the government has limited the power of councils to reduce emissions, as well as several harmful decisions on a national level. But this motion is asking the government to give us more power, something that the motion is trying to do. The amendment would remove this, presuming that climate change is less important than any of the various things we've written to the government about in the last couple of years. The report from the Committee on Climate Change said that the UK climate targets are not aimed at limiting global temperatures to as low a level as in the Paris Agreement. They say that we need to get more serious about meeting current targets first, and then think about setting new targets which will make the change necessary to avert 2 degrees, to avert the worst cases. So let's do that. Let's try to meet the zero carbon by 2050 aspiration. The strategy claims that the City Council will play a leadership role in climate change. Not a national role or a global role on leadership, mind you, even though Cambridge is one of the most wealthy, growing, respected, prospering, privileged cities in the world. Table 1 of the strategy shows that we're not even in the top half of the country's largest cities in terms of CO2 emissions per capita. And our strategy shows only an aspiration of meeting the minimum legal requirements under the Paris Agreement, zero carbon by 2050. So nationally and globally, we're not leading. We're dragging our feet, actually. But locally, leadership is important. Yes, we should be leading. The strategy says that we call upon these stakeholders to collaborate with us to exploit opportunities and resources in order to maximise our collective impact from greenhouse emissions from Cambridge. I've been trying to find people who've actually been invited to work with the council to do this so far, and haven't been having much joy. Yet the estate departments of the universities have been involved in difficult design issues, discussions about efficient power generation, work that I think they were doing anyway, but not many other groups. Perhaps 6 months from the draft strategy being approved hasn't been long enough to send out those emails of impacts. Or maybe the paragraph at the end of the strategy is the invitation to work together. There should be pages more about the strategy for behaviour change and public engagement and working with groups. There's just a paragraph, but maybe because it was a suggestion put by the Greens and the Lib Dems in the response to the draft amendment, but without having information about that strategy, it's not a strategy. The strategy says that we don't have the money to do all the things that we want to do, but the amendment says we shouldn't apply for awards or grants. The idea to apply for the ECSR Festival of Ideas for money wasn't mine. It came from Alan Jones of the Global Sustainability Institute. If we set an aspiration to be a global leader, to try and get to zero carbon before other cities, we would attract funding for innovation, green jobs and green growth. The motion on the table is calling for a vigorous exercise of proactive collaboration and engagement. Of course we can only reach zero carbon by involving people in behaviour change and difficult considerations about the future, so let's do it. That is leadership. I think we're too shy about leading on climate change because it's politically difficult. But what if each party in the room issued a joint statement saying that we need to do some hard things to reduce CO2, some radical things? It wouldn't be a political hit then if we're sharing the responsibility for leading on it. Finally, the issue of targets. We don't really have targets. We have an aspiration. We have an aspiration, but we need a plan. The biggest contradiction in the strategy is that we acknowledge what the science is telling us about climate change and then propose to go about business as usual without fundamental changes, we'll shave a bit off here and there, our way of life will remain in a bubble at the centre. But sooner or later, the Western way of life will change massively. I don't know if it'll be because we'll wait for climate change to make it happen, or I don't know if we'll voluntarily change it. God knows there are plenty of other scenarios that will keep me awake at night. The escalation of nuclear weapons on the Russian border, antimicrobial resistance, the rise of the right, true artificial intelligence. Climate change is still something that we can do something about. We seem to want to keep mumbling along, and nobody mentioned the climate. Keeping recycling out, meat-free Monday, hybrid cars, nothing deeper. I think, finally, the trend towards extreme racism and nationalism in the UK may be part of the strategy for neglecting the climate further. It's no surprise that so many Brexit campaigners are also climate change deniers. Climate change is killing people now, threatens to destroy Africa before other continents, and is a major driver in the refugee crisis. Even if we find a working, scalable implementation for carbon capture and storage by the later half of the century, it will be too late for millions and millions of people. Theresa May's statement, "If you are a citizen of the world, you are a citizen of nowhere," is a terrifying portent of a world where climate chaos, borders, and localized mitigation efforts conspire to devastate people, to devastate species. It's not by accident that Black Lives Matter closed down London Airport last month in protest about aviation expansion. Practical carbon emissions cuts and global leadership are one of the few ways in which we can show solidarity with the EU citizens and the world citizens who are wondering why the UK is suddenly against them. So this motion is for the safety of Cambridge people in 1 or 2 generations' time, and for the survival of many others right now. The Paris Agreement has this incredibly important concept of equity. Developing nations have to put social and economic development and the eradication of poverty first. That's plain in the strategy. So it behooves the richest parts of the richest countries to transition first. Does that sound like something that's in your power to do tonight? The world is watching, although it might look there's only 10 people. I move this motion.
Thank you. Do you wish to speak now or reserve your right?
I would like to reserve my right. I just have a question for Antoinette. Could she answer whether the amendment by the Labour is actually constitutional after the Constitution? Because it seems to negate...
I'm not sure that you can use your time for that because the clock will be running.
It's a point of order.
No, that's
sorry.
You didn't actually...
So, let me give you a couple of legal reasons why I think the Labour motion is not constitutional. I think it negates the original motion in important points because the actual action items are completely taken out, and therefore I would count that as negating the original motion.
I have checked the issue. Councillor Mathinger raised the issue with me. I checked with our head of legal services, and we believe it is within the Constitution. So I'm happy that it should go ahead as is.
Do you still wish
Can
to
you share the opinion with us?
I just have.
Excuse me, a legal opinion has reasons.
I have said that I believe the motion is within our Constitution, which I don't believe it's negatively the motion. And so I appreciate that's your view, but I've consulted, I've given advice, and that remains my advice.
Do you still wish to reserve your right, or do you wish to speak
Absolutely,
now?
yes.
You'll have 3 minutes when your time comes. Councillor Robertson has given notice of an amendment, which you have a clue, which is set out in your information pack on page 39 and is seconded by Councillor Rosy Moore. You have 10 minutes between you. Councillor Robertson, please introduce the amendment.
Well, firstly, I think I need to start off by clarifying the correct way to get things done, especially when it involves people to spend money on staff time.
Councillor Robertson, can you hold your microphone up a bit closer?
Better?
Yeah, you really have to speak up.
Yeah.
Thank you. Right.
Please understand.
What I was saying was that the way we get things changed in the council does not by bring things straight to the council, full council. These things require proper consideration of the proposals by the officers. They need presentation to scrutiny so that members have a chance to question and criticise. They need, in case of budget items, pre-scrutiny of proposals by opposition members. All of this is prior to presentation to the full council for consideration. It's no good going straight to full council expecting us to commit money and staff at staff time without consideration and scrutiny, which is what this motion seeks to do. So, now in March, our new climate change strategy was adopted at Strategy and Resources Scrutiny Committee. We set an ambitious plan of 45 actions focused on 5 key areas over which we have the greatest influence. First of those was reducing emissions, firstly from the City Council, and secondly from homes and businesses in Cambridge. Thirdly, we were reducing emissions from transport. Fourthly, reducing consumption of resources, increasing recycling and reducing waste. And fifthly, supporting everyone to adapt to the impacts of climate change. The emphasis of our strategy is on practical action which the Council can fulfil itself and actions where we can influence others to follow our lead. The officers' briefing note in your information packs goes through the proposals put forward in the motion. In many cases, the response explains how we are covering the ideas put forward. In other cases, ideas would dilute the resources we are putting in by spending time and money on seeking awards or running festivals rather than getting on with the work. We're not going down that route. We'll concentrate on the improved strategy. So that strategy will run for 4 years from now, and it's going to take time for some of the 45 actions to be achieved, especially where we need to work with partners such as other councils, or where we seek to influence residents and businesses. And with regard to businesses, there have been several attempts to get their attention and persuade them to take action on addressing climate change. There was a project called the Practical Health Programme, which ran for 2 years from 2009 to 2011. This aimed to coordinate and share the existing resources and expertise found locally to help workplaces. Now, it's found locally rather than depending on national programmes, and given the failure of first the Coalition and then the Tory government, this is to take seriously the threat of global warming. It did seem eminently sensible to get on with it locally. Unfortunately, it only achieved very limited support. The participants were mainly small and medium-sized enterprises, and the majority failed to take practical action, citing lack of resources, lack of time, lack of money. So once that programme finished in 2011, a self-sustaining network, which it was hoped would emerge, did not in fact do so, and the initiative petered out. So that's one example of work which had limited effect, and there have been others, so you can see that setting over-ambitious targets for achieving a state of zero carbon would be misleading. So over-ambitious targets are not what we're going to do, but we do need to do something. We're going to have another go at helping businesses address the issue. I referred to it earlier in tonight's meeting. We're going to organise a seminar which will bring together expert groups and voluntary organisations working on climate change. The aim will be to identify ways to encourage businesses and other organisations working in and near Cambridge to move to far more efficient use of energy. So we're going to work with the local organisations to find ways. If we're going to get the whole city to zero by 2050, we need everyone to play their part. So that's an example of our approach to tackling global warming at a local level. It's no good setting ourselves up to fail by setting a target of 2030, when we can see that it would require annual reductions of 7% every year, and that's just not going to be achieved. I would add to that, to implement the strategy, we have made sure that there is a good level of staffing and resource rather than dealing with those of the 45 actions which affect their departments. Every report to committee includes an environmental impact assessment. Our resources are not infinite though. As I mentioned earlier when presenting our financial strategy, our government grant is being cut to nil, and to be able to provide services you have to find savings and develop income in order to bridge the gap. So we will not be allocating scarce resources chasing rewards, and will apply our resources locally to achieving our target. The amendment confirms our belief that the Climate Change Strategy 2016-21 and its 45 actions set a realistic and ambitious target, and I ask for your support for it.
Councillor Rosy, do you wish to speak now or reserve your right? We have about 4 minutes, 10 seconds, we have the chance. Councillor Timble.
Thank you. I'm torn between the two of these. The government might call this, Councillor, give us this target, a stretch target, rather than an unrealistic one. Unless you do put a bit of stretch in, we've done very well so far, I'm not knocking what we've been doing. But unless you put in a bit of a stretch in it, at least think of the things that could be stretched. You don't achieve as much as you might. In the south of Cambridgeshire, we've had some extraordinary success because of funding from international and national bodies. It's a bit of hard work, but you get huge rewards from it. So I would like to sit back on our hongers and just ignore some of these ideas. I'm not saying to adopt them all either. I'm just saying if we keep stretching ourselves, we'll find we achieve more than we think we might have done.
Any other debate?
Yep.
Councillor Benstead.
Yes, I support the amendment, Mr Mayor, but I'd just like to take this opportunity to thank Councillor Gillespie for at least making me smile when I read the Cambridge Evening News, which isn't often at the moment. But if I'm right in reading what he said, and he was quoted correctly, perhaps in his response at the, I think there's an entitled response at the end, he could answer the question that's sort of amusing me at the moment. As lead on planning and transport, if I'm reading his quotes correctly, by 2050, do I have to prepare the city for a harbour wall, the eventuality that the sea's coming up to the Cherrington High Street? Those of you who've seen the article will know what I'm referring to, but I'd just like to ask that point. And who would like to take on the moorings if that ever happened?
Thank you. I confess to feeling absolutely bemused at this amendment as being allowed, because it is absolutely negating the whole purpose of this motion. And in fact, I just want to go through some of the things that this motion is asking us to do, because they are not totally unreasonable things. To begin a citywide consultation on and behaviour change exercise targeting personal carbon emissions reductions. That's not that impossible. Why should we not be doing that? To organise an annual sustainability festival starting in 2017 in partnership with appropriate expert groups. This city has fantastic festivals. I think that would be enormously popular. I don't understand why that shouldn't be supported. To begin in 2017 an annual carbon budget cycle alongside the financial budget cycle, in following the example of Worcester and Aberdeenshire councils. That, I confess, would take a certain amount of effort from this council, but given that it is already being pioneered by other councils, and Cambridge ought to be the kind of place where these sorts of things are taken seriously and a pioneering city in terms of the green agenda, that doesn't seem, again, at all unreasonable for the council to be attempting to do. To implement a new tree planting strategy. Of course that's the kind of thing we should be doing anyway, and much of it we are. To bring a report to Strategy and Resources Committee setting up a local energy company based on the Robin Hood model from Nottingham. Why would we not investigate it? It's just looking at a report. These are so many sensible options. I don't understand why completely negated from this motion. And I just urge people not to vote for the amendment, because it's suggesting that we do that thing we're doing already.
The trouble with the thinking behind the Labour Group's amendment is that it's locked into thinking that there's no point in committing to a target unless you know absolutely every single detail about the way you'll achieve it. If that approach to the problem of climate change was multiplied up to a global level, then we would collectively fail. The point of the way we fight climate change is to set, as Councillor Moore said, stretch targets, aspirational targets, and work out along the way how we're going to meet them. And it seems to me that the ruling group here has got themselves locked into a very bureaucratic circle here, which is going to, at the very best, keep their nose clean, but certainly not break any records. I wanted to raise one small detail of this to show just actually you aren't so great as you think you are. The reference is made here in the original motion to putting money aside for tree planting. Well, we were assured when we brought a budget amendment last year to create some money for tree planting that it really wasn't necessary. The council already had it all sorted on tree planting. I go along to my area committee a few weeks ago. Even to replace a dead tree, we were informed there was no money. So how do you square these things? How does this sit with the ruling group looking smart, looking aspirational on climate change? It looks very poor indeed. I proposed at Strategy Resources in March an amendment which was passed by the committee, that we should try and get together with leaders of other organisations, businesses, academic institutions, so not necessarily experts, but people who led big organisations and led opinion and had big budgets, who could help this whole city improve our challenge against climate change. That was supported by this council, but any hint in this motion that that's what we do seems to have been knocked out of it by the amendment. I find it completely incredible. The council is probably doing more than is represented by this amendment. So how you could go ahead and support it, I really don't know, and be serious about this problem.
Councillor Holland.
Well, my ears perk up when I hear people talking about trees, and Councillor Singer expresses surprise that so many things have been negated in the amendment. And there may well be good reasons for this, that there are already measures, that there's this newborn tree, the trees for babies, which I've been interested in this last week. And we're planting this November 292 trees, and that's quietly happening without any big programs on climate change and whatever. And there are so many good things happening in this council. But I sit in this chamber and I just hear these grand, I'm all for anything to reduce climate change. But I hear, these grand gestures, festivals, this and that, talking about it. But when it actually comes to an opportunity to implement things, we've just discussed the city deal, car congestion, and what do we have the Lib Dems doing? Running local campaigns, misinforming people. And I'm really sad to hear Green Council evil schemes, because we're talking about challenging car users in our city, so that those who are both of us who are both car users, cyclists and pedestrians can get about and encourage our children to cycle freely, easily, in good air quality. So yes, I'm all for, addressing the most awful problem we have, we're faced for and for the next generation. But I am so tired of the sanctimonious positions that the Lib Dems constantly take.
A bit of applause I'll allow, but I don't want too long, please. Councillor Smith.
I think the issue here is not we don't want to do anything, but that we have a strategy that is in place, and the appropriate way to change that strategy is to discuss that strategy and make changes to that, not lay strategy upon strategy, because then nothing will get done. I mean, I'm quite interested hearing the fact that trees are being mentioned as something where nothing is happening. I mean, if I could pull the paperwork off this iPad, there's pages of tree strategy here, and actually, given that potentially this hasn't been heard about because no one's mentioned it so far, I just thought I'd remind people of the consultation that is currently running. And it's running from the 18th of October until the 9th of November. Please do fill it in. And the plan is to plant apple trees of every UK variety, approximately 1,200 in a range of locations south of the city centre over the next 5 years. It's all about diversity, it's all about improving our tree stock. It's a fantastic consultation. Those are the kind of things we are doing already. And my concern is that if all we're doing, I want to echo, thank you so much for bringing these things. It's not that we're trying to undermine what we're bringing forward, but I do feel strongly, no seriously, I just feel strongly that if we've got a strategy in place, the way to make changes is to make changes to that strategy, rather than to lay things one across the other, or I think we won't get anything done.
It's always good when numbers are mentioned in this authority, because I do remember we did have 50,000 per year for trees every year, base budget. That was removed by the ruling group this year in the budget. I think the trees the existing council is referencing is an arts project. It's not an underlying budget commitment. It's an arts project which may be planting trees, but the underlying budget of tree planting was removed by the ruling group in the budget. You shake your head. Perhaps you need to consult Councillor Robertson, because he hopefully has the facts. The facts are the 50,000 was removed. It was in the underlying budget year on year, and you removed it this year. And just let's touch on the city deal, because the city deal is very important. And let's look at the Western Busway, right? The A428. The environmental assessment of that proposal that the city deal is moving forward with was the worst environmental score of all the options, 11 out of 40. How can that be a way in which we are dealing with pollution in the city? And just in relation to cars, I think Councillor Holland raises a very important point, but I do disagree with her, because the peak congestion control points, evidence suggests they would increase pollution. An independent report prepared by an academic supports the fact that actually the proposals would be disastrous for the environment and air quality in the city. Not benefiting it, disastrous.
Thank you. Any other speakers? I have a queue of people still who can speak. I have Councillor Rosy, Councillor Gearing, and then we go to the movers of the motion and the amendment. I'm going to take them in the order that I think we would take them in the order with the movers. So, Councillor Rosy, do you wish to speak?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Firstly, I'd like to clarify one thing. It does not say anywhere that we wouldn't apply for grants, but just that we wouldn't apply for awards that we feel we won't benefit from, but that will take time out of the officers' busy schedule where they could be putting things actually into practice. If anybody had read the response to the motion that has been put forward and is in your pack from our climate change officer, then it explains why we have changed the motion and put forward this amendment. Essentially, we're pretty much doing everything that's put forward in this motion, or we don't think that it's a good idea because we feel, or the officers who are working on it feel, that, as we say, it's something like an award or the Sustainability Week, and we're already doing much more important things, and that would distract from that. We've tried them. If it doesn't work, you need to do the things that do work. Excuse me, I'm new. This is the first time I've spoken in here. So, we are doing things. From this October, all electricity used by Cambridge City Council is from renewable internal systems. We are in the process of looking at the Guildhall. It's slightly more complicated because it's a listed building, but we're hoping over the next few years to put in a number of measures which not only make it a more enjoyable place for the staff to work, because the temperatures aren't so different, but also that it saves energy. And lastly, hopefully, in the next few years, with devolution, we will be building a lot of council houses. Unfortunately, under the Tory Lib Dem coalition government, the Code for Sustainable Homes was abolished. However, Cambridge City Council, in all the houses that we've built since then, we have stuck to the code.
Briefing's going wrong.
Keep going yourselves, you're all progress.
So we will be sticking to that target with energy efficiency homes 19% higher than the current regulations.
Yeah, no one in this chamber is saying that you're not doing anything. What we're saying is you're not ambitious enough. Right? Climate change is not a game or some kind of political stand. Climate change is actually a real problem. And with the Paris Agreement entering into force without the ratification by the United Kingdom on the 4th of November, it would have been a really good opportunity to show that this council is really committed to climate change and not just hot air as your amendment represents. I think what makes me really sad is that the climate officer thinks 7% reduction per year is not achievable. There are people in the world that have to cope with much more serious reductions and changes to their lifestyle. Here, we're basically just doing what is convenient. We're not doing what's possible. And I think that's the criticism, right? So to just sit back and say, oh, we're doing, some things, but for example, we're not testing the sustainability of our investments in Haverhill or divesting from commercial properties that are low performing in their carbon budget is a failure of the opposite group. So I think we should reject the amendment and vote for the original motion. Thank you.
Councillor Robertson, as mover of the amendment, you have a right to find the amendment.
Thank you. Well, there were lots of issues there, but what I was trying to get at was that much of the proposals made by the motion are actually covered by our 45 action points. Now, some of them are not, because for the reasons that some of them have been explained. We don't support going for awards and festivals that don't actually achieve anything in their own right. We have done what we can, we are doing what we can directly on our own buildings and our own activities, and we are seeking to provide that as an exemplar for others. But it's very difficult. I tried to give you an example of where we've tried to work with businesses and small enterprises without success. It's not easy to get other people to do things, even though you can do them yourselves. There's no point in setting ourselves a 7% a year target for a whole city when we can't control the whole city. What we're looking at is a 3 to 3.5% target, which is pretty difficult in itself, let alone 7%. You've got to be realistic about these things. It is an aspiration, it is a very difficult target in its own right. But trying to go for 7% when it's just setting yourselves up to fail. It's not good enough. The bit about Robin Hood is a bit of a red herring, really, because the Robin Hood energy company does provide good services to people, but it's not really achieving anything on carbon reduction. Only 24.9% of their electricity supply is actually from renewable resources. So it's not really, we'll be working with them if we can, because other particular reasons, they're work with prepayment meters to produce a better deal for people is one of the primary reasons. But it might be better in many ways to be looking for another company which has a higher level of renewables in their supply. You know, it's no good just going to a company just because it's called Robin Hood. So, anyway, there's some useful points that come over.
First of all, I'll reply to Councillor Blanco about the item on Cambridge News. Occasionally I am disclosing the Cambridge News, there seems to be so recently. But the idea that the sea level will be as high as Cambridge in 50 years is based on science that James Hansen of NASA has worked up. It's not based on fantasy, but by laughing about it, by mocking the people who come in here shaking with fear about the moorings and people in island nations who are losing their homes to sea level rises. Congratulations. The sea level rises aren't funny. Don't make fun of them. The point about the need for a plan to reach zero carbon was that the strategy we have now covers 5 years. But after that, there's nothing. There's no information about what we will do and how we will get the rest of the way. Without having a plan, it is barely an aspiration, it's an apology. Leaving it for the next administration, whoever it is in 5 years, to try and pick up the pieces to reach the zero carbon target by 2050 is putting off the decision for future people to deal with, which we really shouldn't be doing anymore. We need more money, but we won't ask for it. We need more powers from government, but we won't ask for them. We need more community engagement from people, not just businesses, but ordinary people. But we won't ask for that as well. So what are we going to do, if not this motion? I'll be happy if some of these ideas come forward in 3 months or 6 months through the proper routes. If Labour wants to take some of the credit for any of them, then go ahead, please. We need to do more than we're currently doing.
Thank you. We now move to the votes. First vote on the amendment. All those in favour of the amendment, please show.
23.
And those against?
14.
Thank you. And now we move straight to the vote on the substantive. All those in favour, please show.
23.
And those against? Thank you.